Hello, it's now 2023. Yay, and life is still hard. Aw. We in society, we tend to want to achieve a lot with a little. And the only way to do so seems to be to allot our time in a way that maximizes us. For this reason, time management has become one of the most popular topics in the world of self-help. If you search time management on YouTube, you're gonna get like a ton of results. You got how I manage my time, how to manage your time more effectively according to machines. I feel like titles like that kind of give away the game here. There's something that's kind of dehumanizing about this concept. Cause yeah, it's helpful to a point to figure out how to organize your life and your time to achieve stuff, but to a point, right? In fact, a recent Stanford study suggests that this fixation on managing our time has potentially deadly consequences. Now, if you ask me, I think this is because time management is ultimately capitalist propaganda. It derives from capitalists trying to figure out how to work their employees with no regard for their well-being. And it's now become a part of how we program ourselves. Yay! The only way to live a healthier, fuller, happier life is to start deprogramming as much as possible. But if we keep focusing on time management, that may never happen. More on this after the ad break.
Look at the time!
Let's start with somebody who has really taken over the YouTube self-help sphere. His name is Ali Abdaal. His video, How I Manage My Time, 10 Time Management Tips, is among the most popular when you search time management, and it's easy to see why. I mean, he's an accomplished doctor and an entrepreneur, looks kind of good, got a nice setup, and he talks in a way which at least doesn't seem to talk down to the viewer. He seems friendly, he seems like he understands you. Now, when you watch this video, you might find that there's actually some helpful bits. I like the part where he tells the viewer to say no to things with time. I like the idea of to-do lists. I use to-do lists all the time. And I like that thing where the leveraging artificial deadlines part. That's kind of helpful. You know, as a person with ADHD, it's pretty hard to get stuff done on time when you want to in a way that is good. And so adding deadlines to things does help in terms of efficiency, in terms of reminding yourself that there's some sort of pressure. Again, there's some helpful stuff when it comes to time management tips, but there's some problems here too. We first get a sense of the issues in the video from the beginning. In the first clip, Ali asserts that we own our time.
This is like a big one. When I first had this realization, my life genuinely changed because I used to think I don't have time to do stuff. And I don't know where I read it, but I came across this probably like a fortune cookie somewhere, which said something like, at any given moment, you are doing what you most want to be doing. And that was a very empowering thing for me because I was obviously in need of empowerment. And it helped me realize that my time is entirely within my control. Like right now, I'm filming this video because I want to be. Earlier today, I spent 6 hours playing World of Warcraft because that's what I wanted to do. I could not have said I don't have the time to work out today. Instead, it was a case of I'm actively choosing not to make the time to work out today. And so when it comes to time management, step one is always to recognize that we are always in control of our own time. Yes, you might have a boss. Yes, you might have parents telling you what to do, but fundamentally, you are in control of your own time and you can choose to do whatever you want with that time. If you don't have the time to do something, that something is just not a priority. Which is fine, but don't pretend like the reason you're not doing it is because you genuinely don't have the time.
I have 3 problems with this. My first problem is kind of a linguistic one. It suggests that time is a commodity and that we have ownership over it, where time isn't really a commodity, right? But that gives us a subtle insight into what we mean when we manage time. We own it. We commoditize it. You'll understand why this bothers me when we get into point 2. My second problem is that we actually don't own our time. We don't. Not at least in the same way that we own a commodity. Definitely not. And maybe not in other senses either. We don't have unlimited rights to our time. Most of us are workers who... Hi, kitty. Stop right there. Let me finish talking. We may not own our time in any sense, actually. We portion out our time to address the things that we find important, that we have to find important. A great example of this is when we work. We sell our labor to employers in exchange for money, in exchange for resources. So if we work as a barista somewhere, we sell 8 hours of our day. Now that person owns our time, and they get to decide how we're supposed to use it, or else the contract is broken. And yeah, we kind of own that in the sense that that's something we agree to because we have to, though. It's not because we really decided we want to work. It's because the money that we get is for addressing important issues in our lives, like survival. Most jobs are things that we wouldn't do if we were otherwise not being paid, and most jobs are not paying us enough for us to enjoy the work regardless. My third problem ties in with this. Ali gives a quote that I have an issue with.
At any given moment, you are doing what you most want to be doing. Yes, you might have a boss. Yes, you might have parents telling you what to do, but fundamentally, you are in control of your own time and you can choose to do whatever you want with that time. If you don't have the time to do something, that something is just not a priority.
And my thing is, no, we are not doing what we want to be doing at any given moment. Not at all. When a Popeyes employee works an 8-hour shift, he doesn't want to be doing that necessarily. She doesn't want to be working as a desk clerk necessarily. Maybe somebody even who cares about the job that they have doesn't want to be doing it in the way that they're doing it. In other words, Ali's first point doesn't really make sense at all. But if we delve into it, it also reveals the great problem of what Ali's doing here. My second problem with this video is the delegation tip. So Ali says that one of the best ways to save yourself time is to delegate a task. Now, delegation can come in many different shapes and sizes, but generally he means to employ people. And don't worry, if you've got concerns about, not having enough money to employ people, Ali's got a great response.
The way that I think of it, even when this YouTube channel wasn't successful, was that, what is actually the dollar value of my time? How much is my time actually worth? And when it came to running my business, I decided that, okay, my time is worth £20 an hour or $25 an hour. And that means that anything I'm doing that I don't enjoy, that I can outsource to someone, that I can delegate for less than $25 an hour, I absolutely should do that. And that principle of delegation has encouraged me to get a cleaner, which has been great because now we have someone who comes in to clean the house every other week, which means I don't have to do it myself.
Okay, so that's not a great response. The answer to not having enough money to hire people is simply to imagine that your time is worth an amount of money. Can you negotiate based on this amount of money? Can you give this amount of money to anybody? No. But not only that, if you listen to his example, he's telling you also that there's people out there whose time is worth less than yours because you can employ them for significantly less than you value your own time, and they'll do it happily.
And back in the day when I was building my businesses from the ground up and there was lots of things that needed to be done like data entry or things like that, I was able to delegate those to freelancers in the Philippines or in Bangladesh or in India through Upwork.com or Fiverr.com, and paying them $7 an hour is an amazing wage for someone for work in the Philippines. But it was fantastic for me because it freed up my time to do things that were adding more value to the business and to my life than doing data entry, for example. And so whatever your circumstances are, I'd encourage you to think about what is the dollar value of your time, and potentially, if you want, can you delegate stuff that's cheaper than that to other people potentially?
People in the Philippines and other poor countries with low standards of living. Yeah, they're surely completely happy about that situation. When Ali makes this point, he hasn't at all addressed the fact that regardless of what you think your time is worth, you don't have the resources to act on that valuation and hire someone. And two, by this logic, you're essentially determining that other people's value is lower than yours, based on logic that you won't explain, and that you should pay them less than the value of your time so as to make surplus value from that. Do you see what I'm getting at here? And don't get me wrong, it's not wrong to employ people. I employ an editor, a friend of mine, to edit these videos, and without getting into the details of our collaboration, it's certainly not based on the fact that I value my time a certain dollar amount and think that hers is less. But this reveals the big problem, the philosophical problem behind Ali's video and many other videos like this. He's presenting this content as advice for anybody to manage their own time, and the advice is essentially, be a capitalist. He anchors this advice by telling you your time is a commodity, which you have full ownership of. You don't. He tells you that your time is a more valuable commodity than that of others, and that your goal is to create surplus value by using your time as efficiently as possible to get maximum profit out of it. That's the essence of the message, even though it's couched in a lot of great tips about, being more organized. It's ultimately with this particular goal that your time is capital and that you have ownership of that capital. Now, why is this a problem? Let's get into it after another ad break. After all, I need surplus value too, baby.
Hey! Quit stalling, get back to work!
Thanks for watching the ad. Time management originates in the roots of capitalism. It originates in exploitation. It originates in managers dictating to working class people who had no other choice what to do with their time. It originates in capitalists getting working people to do whatever the capitalists wanted so the capitalists can make more money. This is revealed and elaborated on in chapter 10 of Das Kapital by Carlos Marx, in which he writes that the time during which the laborer works is the time during which the capitalist consumes the labor power he has purchased of him. If the laborer consumes his disposable time for himself, he robs the capitalist. Marx uses a historical analysis of 19th century Britain throughout this chapter to demonstrate how laborers expressing their right to a normative usage of their labor time and capitalists expressing their rights as owners of that labor time have had a constant tension over time, specifically over the working day. You know, those 8-hour shifts that Ali doesn't seem to acknowledge. They used to be like 15 hours. The laborers want to assert their right as the sellers of this labor time to not die. To be healthy. In other words, to preserve what they're selling as a resource. The capitalists, however, want to assert their right to use their commodities, which they own, as much as possible, so that they can extract as much profit as possible. As a result, capitalists have long tried to make the working day longer and tried to pay workers as cheaply as possible, and put them under all types of duress, including monitoring bathroom breaks and other things that nobody does anymore. From the beginning, this was something that had to be enforced on people. Workers were punished in often very unsavory ways for being late, not showing up properly, or being somehow inefficient in their labor. Often, these workers were children. In an attempt to preserve their rights, workers often tried to protest or represent themselves politically to pass legislation that, for example, shortened the working day for women and children to 11 hours a day. At every step, capitalists tried to punish this, and they did so because they had the right, because they owned that commodity. Marxist geographer David Harvey, in his lectures about the book, talks about how time management has become normalized throughout society and recounts his experiences with it in academia.
The capitalist becomes absolutely concerned with time management, the management of the worker's time. And this, of course, becomes a general capitalist principle, which carries over into all aspects of society. I once remembered being instructed by a group of very supposedly wise Harvard professors on how to teach an incoming class of undergraduates how to survive in the university. And the first principle they laid out, and they spent most of the time talking about, was time management. And I said something. Do you mean this is a factory or what? No, they can't manage their time. And as an instructor, you have to instruct them on time management, and you have to watch their time management. And if they're failing on their time management, you have to tell them immediately they've got a problem with their time management. So this has now become a general principle of capitalist society. But Marx is talking about it inside the factory. This is crucial. Moments are the elements of profit. What this means, of course, is that there's continual pressure within the capitalist system to try to capture more and more of those moments and to make sure how those moments are utilized.
That conclusion that moments are the elements of profit is essentially the central tenet to most time management content. Rather than trying to help you live longer or more liberated or more healthily or more cooperatively with other people, time management content is usually trying to convince you to profit more from your labor time, get more results. And of course, the dirty secret of capitalism is that you can't be a capitalist if you don't have enough capital.
It has not been easy for me. And, I started off in Brooklyn. My father gave me a small loan of $1 million. I came into Manhattan.
What happens when Ali Abdaal's viewers are less like him and more like the worker in the Philippines that he's hiring for cheap wages to help him with his time? Let's conclude. One of the most popular videos in this genre comes from the king of inspo content themselves, TED conferences. There's a TED Talk by business speaker Laura Vanderkam called How to Gain Control of Your Free Time, and it contains some of the same issues that Ali's video has.
One of the women whose time log I studied, she goes out for a Wednesday night for something. She comes home to find that her water heater has broken, and there is now water all over her basement. If you've ever had anything like this happen to you, you know it is a hugely damaging, frightening, sopping mess. So she's dealing with the immediate aftermath that night. Next day, she's got plumbers coming in. Day after that, professional cleaning crew dealing with the ruined carpet. all this is being recorded on her time log, winds up taking 7 hours of her week. 7 hours. That's like finding an extra hour in the day. But I'm sure if you had asked her at the start of the week, could you find 7 hours to train for a triathlon? Could you find 7 hours to mentor 7 worthy people? I'm sure she would have said what most of us would have said, which is no. Can't you see how busy I am? Yet when she had to find 7 hours, because there is water all over her basement, she found 7 hours. And what this shows us is that time is highly elastic. We cannot make more time, but time will stretch to accommodate what we choose to put into it. And so the key to time management is treating our priorities as the equivalent of that broken water heater.
Vanderkam seems to think that this example of the time a woman had to fix her broken water heater over the course of a week shows how our time is elastic towards what we prioritize. But she doesn't address what that prioritization is based on. Even though she shows empathy towards the issue that the woman's facing and how bad it is to have a broken water heater and have water leaking all over, she neglects to point out that this issue did not happen because of something the woman did herself, and yet it necessitatively became an important part of her life. Because having something like that happen to you is a serious health and safety threat. You're not going to find the same hours to prepare for a triathlon or to hang out with your family as you are to fix a health and safety threat in your house, because one issue is severely more important to your survival and health than the other, even though you would love to do a triathlon or whatever. Likewise, you're not going to have control over the things you spend time on. Usually it comes from things that are completely out of your control. In this way, Vanderkam is right. Time is elastic, but it's not elastic towards what we want. It's elastic towards what we need and all the different power dynamics that we have to go through in order to get what we need. Many people are being treated unequally and being exploited and have to use their time in order to overcome the exploitation, overcome the unfair circumstances. Mainly because somebody else owns their time, owns their ability to take care of themselves, owns their ability to live. If you don't get a job, you're probably going to die. So many things have power over us. Capital has power over us, and that which has power over us takes our time in order for us to address the inequities that we deal with as a result. As much as self-help people want to tell you otherwise, you can't usually control what you give power to, because you didn't give the power. It was taken from you. It's coerced from you. And throughout your life, you're dealing with that coercion. And they want to tell you that that's your fault, and yet at the same time blame you when you're not able to use your time more efficiently. Not they. Many of you may enjoy this content. I can understand it. A lot of people tell me that it's inspiring and comforting. I can see that. Sometimes the tips are even helpful. But I also hear people tell me all the time that they're frustrated with themselves. They're frustrated because they can't put the advice in action. And in fact, a lot of people tell you that they watch these videos over and over again. They love to watch TED Talks for inspiration and ideas, but they spend more time watching those things than they do actually enacting what they see in the videos. And they start to be insecure about that. You know, they start to feel like that's their problem. They're lazy. But there's a reason that you might binge this content and never actually use it in your own life. The reason is that the content is not for you. And don't get me wrong, there are some great content creators that are grappling with these inequities present in productivity content, including StudyQuil and Elizabeth Phillips. But even when content creators have great ideas that you can use and showcase great character, a problem still remains. To me, time is supposed to be cherished, not managed. Time is not a laborer that you can get to work for you all the time. That's a lie. You're not supposed to have people work for you as much as possible. That's slavery. And there is no one person who can tell you what you should do with your time. In fact, more often than not, when somebody's telling you that their advice is universal and that it'll definitely help improve you, they're usually trying to sell you on something. It's more likely that they're just integrating you. They're trying to convince you that their system can work for you, that the system can work for you. You just have to become the system. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe, comment. Bye.